We are still live on Facebook. So if anyone has any questions, they can throw that into the comments if they have any questions that are specifically for you. But it's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And before I have you introduce yourself, just some background for anybody who might have not seen the introduction from the previous town hall. My name is Alex Bingham. I'm with Find the Light Foundation. We are a student advocacy group with the goal of eliminating suicide and overdose in teens and young adults. And we do that by empowering students to advocate for themselves and others. These town halls, all of the questions were submitted by community members. I might have some follow-up questions, but all of the main questions were submitted by people in the district: parents, teachers, students, alumni, and community members. And Find the Light does not endorse any candidate. Every candidate was offered a spot at a town hall, and we thank you for participating in that. I believe that's my whole spiel. So if you could introduce yourself for us.
Sure. I'm Erica Powers. I'm currently the Board of Education president. I'm running for my third term on the school board. I went through Fort Zumwalt from kindergarten, graduated, so I've been in the district my entire life. I have children who have either graduated, and I have three. I have one in high school, middle school, and elementary school. And let's see what else. I have my teaching degree, which I did my student teaching in Fort Zumwalt. So I was in the classrooms, which was really awesome. And I'm also the PTO president of my kiddo's school.
Wow, you are truly Fort Zumwalt bread and butter.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, if it's all right with you, we'll just jump right into our questions. We've got a lot of them.
Absolutely.
And like I told Kat and everybody else, these are not in a particular order. The order is probably going to be different from the order that Kat answered her questions in. We will get through as many questions as we can. And if we don't get to all of them, I will send them, or you actually already have the questions. So it's up to you if you want to keep going with them on your social media or anything like that.
Sure.
All right. So the first question is going to be from a parent, and that is, how are you going to advocate for and support special education and related service providers in the district?
So special education has always been something really close to my heart. That's one of the reasons I got involved in the board and ran, having children who needed different needs that I didn't feel were being met at the time, specifically with dyslexia and reading. So I'm very cognizant of that. And it's very important that we are constantly staying abreast of everything, because things are constantly changing, right? Like education is a living being. So you need to know what's going on, you need to know what's happening. And that's something, I mean, it's just not a question in my head. It's something I will always advocate for. But I do think we do a good job of the people that we're putting in place to support those, but we have to make sure we have enough people in those places, like the crisis counselors that we're bringing in. That's huge, because we have our counselors that are in there that have been inundated with trying to take care and help and do all these different things that are, not just special education, but with social emotional, all these different things. So it's really looking at, do we have the right people? Do we have the right supports in place? It's not always how many we have in it. Do we have the right ones? Do we have the right training? Are we training our teachers with the right things? Are we giving support to the paras and the SPED teachers that they need? It's all those different aspects built into one. So I 100% advocate for that all the time, because it's incredibly important.
Absolutely. These next two questions go together. So the first one is, how do you plan on using your position to advocate for students, or how have you, since you are one of our incumbents?
That's always, when anything has come to me, that's always my main thing, is what's the best for our students and our staff. That's always how I make my decisions. And so I feel that I always have advocated, whether it's, doing things to help keep them safe, making sure they have opportunities. We've expanded and done so many awesome things, and I have any of that has come our way or that I have pushed for to help get it through. You look at our high school and all the different opportunities our kids can come out of high school trained in jobs. They can go and do all these different employment opportunities, because it's so important to learn that at that age than, go and spending thousands on college when maybe you don't want to go to college and maybe there's other things you can do. But advocating for that, and again, we get the right people in place and they come with ideas and say, hey, I really want to do this. And my theory is always, I don't micromanage. I think it's really important that if I believe in you to put you in that position, or I believe in the person who put you in that position, we should support you and you're the expert. So when they come to us and say, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is going to help our kids and this is going to help our staff, I'm like, absolutely, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And I think you started touching on the second part of this question, which is, how do you plan on using your position to advocate for teachers?
So obviously teachers are close to my heart because I have my teaching degree. But really the biggest thing is teachers want to be listened to and they want to be respected. They have trained and they're the ones that are there working with kids. They're the expert in that area. So I always tell people that it's a whole respecting and trust, that it starts from us and it goes all the way down in every single level. And when we lose that trust in any one of those levels, we have an issue. So if the teacher doesn't trust their admin, there's going to be a problem. If a student doesn't trust their teacher, we're going to have a problem, right? So that's really big to me, that we're constantly building on that. And that comes from listening, I'm very lucky that because I went through the district, I do have a lot of friends that are teachers and that feel comfortable that reach out to me and say, hey, what about this? What about that? But I've always tried to make myself open so that anybody feels comfortable, no matter who you are, kid, teacher, parent, saying, hey, I have a question about this. Because that hearing is the best way you can advocate for somebody when you put yourself in their shoes and going in there. I mean, I was in the classrooms with them. I did different, learning and training with them. And I got to get that feedback of, hey, this really sucks, or, hey, this is awesome. We need more support here. And that helps me advocate in those areas. So again, it's a no-brainer that, you listen and filling in those needs where we need it. I think we've done a really good job. We got the pay up. We're not fully where I want to be, but we made 7.5% raises big that we did. And we're doing stuff across the board because it's blatantly obvious that there were things that needed to be fixed. So the biggest part of that is looking at where, it doesn't mean we're not doing something right or that we need more of this or that. A lot of times when you step back and you look at it and you say, where can we be doing better? And working smarter, are there new things that we're not doing that we should be doing? Are we not listening to this person who's saying, why is this process this way? This doesn't help us. We're in the classrooms, listen to us, right? So that's really big part of it. And when you know that you're doing things efficiently, then that opens up money a lot of times that you can put into the places where it really needs to go. So that's a big thing that we're doing, that we're in the process of doing. And I'm thrilled that we've been able to get stuff and get our staff up to levels they need to be and fix some issues that had gone on for too many years that really needed to be fixed. And I'm really proud of that. And I think we have a phenomenal team in place and everybody's on the same page. That's what's so exciting. Everybody you talk to, everybody understands it is like, yes, this is what we need to do. This is incredibly important. So I'm just really excited for that. Sorry, I went on about that.
No, absolutely. We love to see the passion. And that actually leads me to a follow-up, because as somebody who has served on the board for, you said 3 terms, correct?
This will be my third.
Yeah. And as the acting board president, and as a parent and a teacher, how do those experiences, how do they inform how you approach your work with the board?
It just makes me very open when I walk into things. I try and keep a really open mind. I don't have one way that I'm tied to either or. I don't think that just belongs in education. I think that everybody should be focused on the one goal, which is to give our kids the best education they can have. So I always look at it that way when I walk into it. But it has, I feel, made me stronger because I do have that background of coming where teachers are from. I've been in the district, so I know a lot about it and what's going on. And I get involved. I spend a lot of time every week in this position, which you don't have to do technically, but it's very important to me. And so I join as many committees as I can. I go to as much stuff as I can to get that input and get that feedback. Because again, it's about listening, and going into everything with an open mind of how can we take this knowledge? How can we take these experiences and make things better?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this This next question is obviously very important to me as someone who works with Find the Light. As I said, we are very focused on student mental health. This question was submitted, I believe, by an alumnus of the district, which is, what plans do you have regarding student mental health in the future?
So this is also really exciting. We've been working on our CSIP, which is our long-term planning. And it's really great because that's something that should always be out there. So everybody knows they can get on there and see like, okay, this is what their goals are. This is how they're doing things, their focus, and everybody's on the same page. So we're working on that, and we've spent tons of time, community members, teachers, counselors, I mean, people all across the board. We're all working and doing this. But what I really loved in doing that is that everyone had the same, you had to, I mean, we have posters of like, what are words you would use for this? What are things that are important to you? What are main focuses? And everybody at social emotional, that was something very big that, you know, across the board, not just for our students, but for our teachers, our staff. I mean, you can't expect a teacher to turn around and go in with a happy face and be their best when they just had a student throw a desk across the room. You know, it's those moments of going in and just saying, hey, are you okay? Do you need a minute? You know, do you need to regroup? How can I help you? You know, those are things that we have to pay attention to. But what I am so thrilled about is that we are putting all this in, like, so the social emotional is mixed into everything we're doing. The bullying group, I'm on that committee. You know, to me, when you look at, you have a child bullying, right? We know this is a problem that's going on, and there's a plethora of reasons. You know, you have social media, you have all these different things, but what I can't stand is when it's just like, okay, you're suspended or you're this. What are we doing to help the problem, right? A child doesn't just become a bully. They don't just turn around and like, I'm going to pick on this kid because I'm an ass. Like, we just, you know, that's not just in somebody's DNA that they walk into. So what I really have focused on, and we are focusing on, is looking at that child too. And okay, what's going on? What do you need here? Because you being out of school isn't going to help. And it's not going to help that child that you bullied, you know, that if it keeps happening again, you know what I mean? So really looking at it of how we can help everybody across the board. And that really helps things mentally too, that we're providing them what they need. You know, it's all that across the board, because all of it, it's so intertwined. You know what I mean? It's all like the nerves and everything go together. So that social emotional part of it is intertwined with how they learn. It's intertwined with the bullying. It's intertwined with everything. So when we know that and we focus on that and how we're doing things, and we look to keep expanding and getting better, it's going to keep getting better, you know, and listening, really listening. That's the big thing of just doling out things to kids and saying, oh, you can't do this. This is this way. That's not how they learn. They don't have a voice. We need to hear kids' voices, you know, and that's a big part of the leader in me, which I push for, is kids having a voice and them feeling like, you know, hey, I have this question, and knowing I can speak up and I'm going to be supported, and parents feeling that, and admin feeling that, and teachers feeling that. It's a whole, that's why I'm saying it's all so intertwined together. So it's incredibly important, but it's just as important as the grades they get, because if they can't, if they're not there and they're struggling and they can't focus and they can't feel okay or safe, they're not going to learn. So that's a big part of what we do too. So sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, that's fantastic. And actually, one of the things that really struck me before we even created Find the Light, when we were just a Facebook group, was how many people who openly admitted to being bullies in school, explaining why they were bullied or why they were bullies, and how just the smallest little changes to how they were treated during the day or at home, or the smallest supports they had while they were at school, could have made a big difference. And I think that the district has made a lot of strides in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so, staying on similar topic, this question says this is a similar question from a different perspective. So this one says, many kids suffer with mental health issues, and educating in the classroom has been a challenge for teachers. What can the school district do to support our teachers going forward to make sure they have training, knowledge, help, and tools to work with kids with all different types of needs?
So I think a big key to this is early interventions. You know, you had kids coming in from COVID who had never been in preschool and trying to socialize and be in classrooms and then meet these goals. They're going to act up because they don't know how to express that. Their little minds don't know how to say, I'm frustrated. This is too much, right? So And then you have those kiddos that need that early intervention that's not getting it. So the better that we can do with that, whether that's, when they register for kindergarten, we have our early childhood center. If they're registering through there and they do some background with them and, hey, I think this would help you to work on this before. We can do these things, come here and we can work on these different areas. So they're not so frustrated when they're coming into it. Or having those crisis counselors in there that can work with the kids early on, when I'm feeling this way, this is how I can react. Instead of doing these are things I can do. And working with them, and also working with parents, because I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want to be a bad parent today. I think some people just don't know what to do, right? And so that's part of helping, giving that, here's some things you can do, and here's some resources for you, and offering that for them. But I think that would help tremendously for the long term with the kids, but also it's really giving the right training that those teachers need, because they don't in college. I'll tell you right now. I mean, that's a huge sore problem in my eyes. They touch on it, but they have no idea. These kids that get out of college to teach, walking in, they don't know what to do if they've got Johnny jumping on a desk, screaming and throwing things, which is absolutely not okay, but it happens. And these teachers having to deal with it, plus all the other things they have to deal with, of kids with different backgrounds, different things that they're going through emotionally with their families or themselves. So it's making sure we have enough training, which is making sure we have enough PD, and that's valuable, that is really what they need, and listening to them again when they say, hey, I don't know how to handle this, or I need more help in this area, that we can say, yes, we got you. We can bring this person in, or we can do this training, or you can call this person and work through with them, because it's nothing like we've seen. I mean, it just really, and I really feel like unless you've been in the classroom and you see what teachers deal with, it's really hard to answer that question, because there's things that you see that you're like, what is going on here? And you're looking at a teacher like, God bless you. It's just, and it gets to a point like, how much is too much? They're human beings and they need to be respected, and those little beings need to be respected. So the earlier we can help them out and get to the bottom of this, the better it's going to be for everyone.
Absolutely. So changing course just a little bit, obviously, because you have experience on the Board of Ed, you know a lot about the business aspects of the district. So this question is specifically aside from the business aspects of how the district is run. What types of ideas do you have to help students in the Fort Zumwalt School District be successful and well-rounded before they graduate high school?
So I think we continue on what we're doing with offering different paths for the kids and having opportunities to get out into the real world and try things out, internships, apprenticeships, the things that we're working on with local businesses, that the kids can get in there and have hands-on experience. That's going to help them more than anything. And you have somebody who says, oh, I want to do this. Okay, well, try it out now. And maybe you don't want to do that, or maybe that morphs into something else that they can try. That's really putting all those things at their fingertips is going to be the best for them. And that's what we have to keep on doing. And I love seeing, these kids just come up with so much. It's just amazing me. Like I always, whenever something with it, I'm like, ask a student to do it. I bet they could do that. Like, I want to see more of that incorporated into projects that they're doing, right? That, hey, the district needs this, or we need you to work on this, or we're going to have you intern with this person in the district so you can work on these things. There's so much opportunity. We're such a big district, and our kids I love it. It constantly amazes me. They just come up with these awesome ideas. So we have to keep helping them do that and nurture it and let them lead, let them show us and tell us, hey, I need more of this, and I'd like to learn more about these things.
Absolutely. And speaking as someone who works with some kids, they definitely know more than I do about a lot of things. And that's something you don't always expect as an adult.
Yeah, they're awesome. It's just, and that's something what I really liked about Leader and Me Too. Another part of it is, even from little ones, when you talk to them, they know their goals. They know, like, here's my goal. This is what I'm working on. Here's what I want to try and do. And they're proud of it. And they can speak for themselves. And that learning that and going on is so powerful, that think of everybody was taught that way from early on, which is the goal that we're going to get to, that they could communicate with each other in that aspect. and come up with these ideas and be like, hey, I'd like to try this. I think this might work better. And in turn, the teacher says, yeah, do it. Let's go for it. Show me how it works. It's just, when you see that happen to those kids, that is literally one of the best feelings in the world, is when you walk in the school and you see the stuff they're doing, or a kid comes up to you who you've known since they were little and they're like, look what I did. It's awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine it's very rewarding too.
It is.
So this next question is about teachers. How are you going to support teacher salaries being more aligned with other districts to keep experienced staff who have worked for the district long term?
I touched on that a little bit before, but we really worked extremely hard with this last negotiation to give a big bump that we did, and to even out, because there were a lot of disparities in how things were done. We've worked really hard on that. So we took big steps with that, and that goes across the board. That's not just with our teachers, but it's things with our paras, our nurses, custodians, all the people that are in play, even our admin. When you look at, salaries compared to places around us, we were lacking in a lot of those. And people stay because they love our district. And that, it hurts my heart, because I love that people stay for that. And I want them to, because I think we have the best, but we should also be able to treat them like the best. And so we're working to make that happen. And it's also just doing things that just shows respect, like, we can work with you on these days and you don't need to come in on these certain things. Showing respect to people goes a really long way. And we do respect our teachers and our staff. So I think we are moving forward in a really great direction. I think we've made huge strides from where we were, but I have full faith in the staff that we have in place and our admin. They see very clearly things that we need to do. And I think that's definitely going to get accomplished.
Awesome. All right. So this next question is a little bit long, but I do think it's important. It was submitted by a parent. Mm-hmm. The American Medical Association, Academy of Pediatrics, and the CDC all recommend evidence-based and comprehensive sex education programs be offered to students. Will you, as an elected board member, address the need for comprehensive sexual education?
That's a hard question, because we went through a bunch of stuff with this while I was on the board, and as a parent, we've come really far with how things used to be, because it wasn't so great. I feel two-faceted on this. I think we should absolutely teach things medically proven, right? I think that is the most important thing that we can do, so kids can speak medically and correctly in terms, like, that's important to do. It becomes sticky, because some parents are like, well, I want my kids to learn this. And some parents are like, I want my kids to learn that way. And really, I think it is a job of parents at home to be educating how they want their kids to know on certain things, or to push, not really push, but you know what I mean, in the home of how they feel this is how we believe. But what we can do is what's medically factual, right? Because that's not pushing anything. We're not saying we think you should do this or we think you should do that. The state says what they think we should say is the best option. Well, obviously, if anybody does that, then chances are pretty darn slim that you're going to, something's going to happen. But we also know that's not reality. So I think if you teach medically the correct information, we have very smart kids, and that's where you need that parent connection, and there needs to be that communication, so parents know this is the medical, and if you want from further there, then you need to be having these conversations with your kids. And for those that aren't comfortable with that conversation, having different places that they can contact that the kid would feel comfortable talking with, because maybe some parents don't feel comfortable. But there's several things in education that really, that's where you need the parents to be involved, that they put their input in of how they want things with their kids. And that's where we work together. And when you don't have that, that's when false information goes out and people get upset. And it's, so it kind of has to stay just bland and medically correct and across the board. So people know this is the medical, this is a result of this, here, all that information, because that's facts. So like I said, it's a challenging situation, because it very easily can go one way based on how somebody personally feels. And so you have to really keep those goggles on of this is medically the right things. That
Yeah,
that answered.
yeah, that definitely makes sense. And obviously there's a variety of different opinions on that topic, so I don't think there's a correct answer.
Yes, there are.
um, so this next question I think plays right into your strengths as a board president. How will you manage conflict within the board?
Well, I think I've been through some of the biggest conflicts that I hope that board ever sees.
Yes.
Our board is very, I think we're really lucky because across, you look at places and the nonsense that goes on, and we've never had it like that. I mean, yes, there were disagreements that went on, but nothing in the ilk of those things. And we've always really tried to ensure that we're listening to everyone, and we have that relationship with our admin team because it's incredibly important. Again, that trust element is extremely important. But for me, like I do with any of that, you try and listen to other people's views. I mean, you don't have to believe exactly what I believe. And in fact, I'd rather you didn't, because you learn so much more from other people with different views. And it would be rather boring if our board was exactly the same on every single thing. And we wouldn't be getting all the input we should be getting. I mean, that's not how our world is made up, right? So I like having that diversity and the different backgrounds and the different opinions. So to me, it's not, it's really telling people, like, put that crap aside and let's focus on what needs to be done here, which is making things best for our kids and our staff. So I love our board. I hate that, it's just everybody that's on there has the same thing. It's great, and we get along great with our admin team. So if I win again, my plan is to keep it that way, that everybody, if they come on and they have different views, great, but we're all here for one reason. So let's move on. It's
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of common ground to be found when you are with an organization that's main goal is to take care of kids. Everyone wants the best for the kids and the teachers and everyone else involved.
Absolutely.
All right. So this next question is actually one of my favorites because I love seeing questions submitted by students for the school board, because obviously, even though not all of them can vote for you, you are serving them as much as you're serving the teachers and the parents who vote.
Yes.
So this question is, I'm frustrated because I hate the school lunch choices except the frozen strawberries. I don't know how to get a message to somebody who can change it. What would you do to make it easier for students to communicate their frustrations?
So the first thing I think about, again, is leader in me. When that's being taught correctly in the schools, they don't have that question. I think of the story in one of the trainings I was in, and it was a leader in me school, and the kids, they kept seeing all this stuff being thrown away at lunch, and they didn't really like the lunches, and they were like, well, but it's all being wasted, like, why is this being thrown away? So they went around and they talked to the kids, and they asked the teacher, hey, I want to figure this out, and they said, go for it. So they went around and they asked the kids, they're like, why are you throwing that away? Well, come to find out, the food was hard for these kids to eat. Their kids are losing front teeth, and they're giving them an apple that's not cut up, right? And they're giving them foods that's not easy for them to eat when they're losing teeth and they have loose teeth. So they came up with, hey, here are solutions. This would make it easier and kids would like this food better. And they submitted it, and the changes were made. So, it's, again, comes down to listening and empowering kids to have a voice, which I truly believe Leader in Me does. And it's really just them knowing that and having that inside of them that, hey, I don't like this. Like, hey, my lunch person that's there, or hey, to the principal. In my kids' school, they'll go into the principal and say, hey, I have this idea about this. What do you think? And I've heard her many times turn around and go, all right, tell me how you'd figure that out. Let's make it happen. And that's what we want to do with our kids on every level, so that if they have a thing with the food, which I'll tell you what, my kids have said different things, me too, and not get enough food, or why did they switch this? And some of it is because supply and demand has changed greatly since, what we can and can't get in there. But, absolutely, that school, they could have a little committee that they get together, kids, that they put together a survey. What are your favorite foods? What are the ones you don't like? What would you like more of? That they could put out. Those are things that they could come up with and do. But that encouragement is what we have to give to our kids. So they just know that. So there's not this like, who do I ask? That it's just yeah, this is what we're gonna do. And that's what finding your voice is about. So, and the communication is equal across the board. So some schools are really good, and I'm not downing any school, but some, like, they know they have stuff set up on the websites, right? Where teachers have things set up that the parents can go and see things quickly, or the counselors have things set up. Like, that should never be, well, this school has this or this has that. That should be on our district website. Those are things that we should have, and those are things we're working on to improve and get that feedback. But that should be, if somebody has a question with mental health, if they go on, they click, they have all this, and that is a big thing that we're working on. If a student has a question that they want to submit and they want to talk to Paul Becker, who's in charge of our nutrition, they have every right to do that and say, hey, why is this like this? And you know what? He would write them back and he would tell them. You know what I'm saying? So but it has to be across the board. We can't do these things here and there and there. And that's part of a big focus that we're doing too, is making sure that it's unified. And so everybody knows this is what you do. Here's our goals. This is how Fort Zumwalt does things. Because when you have it all broken up, it's just a hot mess.
Absolutely. And just bouncing off of that question and your answer, is there anything that the board specifically can do to solicit student opinions and ideas and concerns? Because obviously everyone I've talked to on the board cares a lot about how students are experiencing school. Is there anything you can do so that it's easier for them to directly tell you guys what they need and what they want?
Again, it goes to that listening and being available. I try really hard. Anytime a student reaches out to me, I respond right away and I talk with them and I get as much information as I can to help them out, and going into the schools, talking to the kids and being there so they know, like, they see you and, hey, I can talk to you. But again, to me, it goes back to that of finding your voice. I had a young lady who sent me something that she was hoping to get changed for her in her high school. And she sent me all this stuff. I mean, she was so well versed in how she spoke. She spoke up for herself, all stuff, which is phenomenal. So I want all our kids to feel that way. So if they want to reach out, that they know, hey, I know who Erica is. I can send her a little note and I can ask her a question, that it's like, or their principal or a superintendent or somebody that they can ask a question to and feel comfortable that they're going to get an answer back. Like, nobody should ever be afraid of not speaking and talking. So I just always try to make myself available and let people know that I'm a human being. I'm a mom. That you can talk to me about anything. And I will, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you and I'll do my best to find out.
All right, fantastic. This next question is, many candidates in Board of Education elections seem to be responding to fears that schools are trying to undermine parents. What are your thoughts on the role of schools in students' lives in areas that are not strictly academic, and how do you think parents' fears can be calmed?
I think putting the facts out there is like one of the most important things we can do, right? That drives me absolutely insane, to be honest with you. Because there's so much false information being put out there, and it does a disservice to our staff and our teachers who work so hard with these kids. And when they say, oh, they're trying to do this and they're trying to brainwash your kids, or they're trying to do these things, that it's just ridiculous. And it kills me, and I get very defensive about it because I know that's not what's happening. And it's like a slap in the face to the people who are in there every day working hard with these kids. So I think the biggest, again, talking and listening. When parents have concerns, I get emails and people ask me, and I'm like, here, you can read through this stuff, and I discuss things with them. But it's showing and having, again, things on the website, people being able to see the CSEP. These are the things that we're working on. There's no undermining. We're not trying to brainwash children. We're not it's nuts. The stuff that people are using to try and push agendas. And it's like, how about we just focus on what our kids need, because it's the future of our country, and it doesn't matter which side you come from. We want the best for our kids, period, So I just really think it's more educating and having that information, the correct information out there in places where they can read real documentation that's not some news BS. that's out there, and letting people know, like, just because you read it on social media does not mean it's true. You know, I see stuff, people pick up something and they're like, oh my gosh, I read this is happening at this school and they did this and that. And it is like, it's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not what's happening. But on the other end, if we're doing it right and we're putting out all the awesome things that our students are doing in our schools as much as possible, and we're sharing all that, and parents know where to go to get that information, then they would look at that and laugh and say, no, I know better than that, because I know what's going on in my kids' schools. And I know that this is not what Fortune is doing. So we have to do a better job of that, you know, and it's just, the world has changed. It really has. It's so people are very quick to get all their information off a social media feed, and it's alarming, but you know, we have to counteract it in that way. So that's something that I'm like, ugh, about. It drives me crazy, but
yeah, no, understandably, especially as someone who has been on the board for so long. So we're going to transition a little bit to some hot button topics. So I know it's going to be a little bit controversial, but these are topics that people submitted questions about because they're in the news and they're very common. So first of all, what is your position on so-called book banning? That is not always the term that is used, so I want to make that clear.
That whole thing, again, it's so frustrating because we have processes in place, and people say, oh, you know, just we literally have processes in place that if somebody is like, hey, I have a question about this book, they pull it up. We have a committee that it goes through, that they read, and they get their recommendations. So, you know, our teacher or the librarians who are picking this stuff, they're picking books from valid sources. They're not just, you know, going rogue. And I'm not going to say, I can't control what every single person does in our district. There may be somebody who comes in and has some idea, but we pay very close attention to those things. And if a parent has ever brought something up, we're like, yeah, we're going to look into it. And it goes into that process. We have a way of doing things. But you got to be kidding me. To Kill a Mockingbird? Like, what? You know, I truly believe that we have history for a reason, and we need to learn from it. And you can't erase history, but you can look at it and say, okay, I get these lessons out of it. And that's what books are. You learn lessons from books and you know, apply it to it. But, you know, I think it's, I don't know. I love books. I think they're the most amazing thing. They take you wherever you need to go. But I think, again, when you're having these conversations with parents and you're very clear on here's our process, these are how we do things. So if a parent does have a concern and say, hey, I'm a little confused with this. And I'm not gonna lie, there's been things that my kids have come home and said, we were reading this, and I'm like, ooh, back up. What are you talking about? And, you know, we have a conversation and I've talked to the teacher. Well, what was this? And I'm like, okay, you know, but I also need to give that teacher the benefit of the doubt, because, you know, I'm not going to jump to some conclusion, but we also need to have those conversations. If a parent has something that they're really concerned about, then bring it and we will take it to the right sources and we'll look through and see. But getting rid of some of these things for these reasons is just like insane to me. That's not what our country was built on. That's not who we are. And it's just alarming.
And that brings up another point. Is there any way to balance the rights of parents to decide what media their children consume with the rights of parents who want their kids to read To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever other books are being challenged?
So we have in the libraries, parents have to sign when they do all their paperwork for the kids to be able to check out books of certain levels. They have to sign for that with it. So we do have certain areas and certain checks and balances in place. So if there are parents who are like, hey, I don't want my kids checking out books above this, they hit the thing and those kids can't check this stuff out. I mean, but let's be honest, they can go on a computer and they can look at any book in a library across the world. So, I mean, I would hope that people who take that big of concern in a book take that big of concern of their child's social media, because it's much worse than what they're going to read in a book. But that balance, I mean, yes, the parents, they absolutely, that's where they need to know what's going on. They need to be able to access the curriculum. They need to be able to see, and that's where they have that trust with the teacher, and all that information is put out there. They get a syllabus. This is the stuff that we're doing. And if they have concerns about it, that they can bring it up and be listened to, you know, but both sides need to hear each other. Here are my concerns. Well, here's why we do this. Here's this, and discuss it. So, I mean, I think the simplest answer to that is listening and talking and communicating. I mean, that's, instead of everybody jumping in these things and getting on social media, did you know they're doing this? Did you know this? I mean, what good does that do? You have to give people trust.
Yeah, it
So
seems like the major themes are communication and trust.
absolutely, 100%.
So we've got several questions focused on different diversity topics.
Sure.
So we've got a few about the LGBTQ community. Obviously, there's a lot in the news. So what is your stance on LGBTQ supports at our schools in the form of gay straight alliance clubs and assistance for students who are transitioning?
So regarding the clubs, I don't have an issue as long as they're appropriate. And what I mean by that is I don't want somebody doing a club who, if there's going to be somebody who needs help, that they are not trained to provide that help. Now, if somebody just hosting them, if it's, say you have a game club and you're doing that, you don't need a lot of training to do that. But if you have a club that there's kids that are going to be coming to you, as you know, that need mental support and need help, you need to have somebody who knows how to walk them through that or get them the correct help they need. So that's always been a big concern of mine, is making sure that we have the right people in place and that they can get the training they need to do that. And because it is something that's very important, but absolutely, I mean, it's a club, right? I didn't like when they were hitting some of the younger levels, how they were putting words, they were being so, it was almost like in your face, like using these words with the kids that kids at those levels wouldn't know. And on that, I think is wrong to that, right? I think there should be things that the counselors are very aware of, that they have clubs or they have groups that kids who need to talk with each other, that they can find support in and be, but putting stuff up that kids that aren't even, their minds aren't even ready or prepared for that, I think it's not a good either for that child, because then they're like, what, I don't know what this means. And then it's this whole other, so it's really a fine line with a lot of things. It is, of what's the right thing for child development, but it's also, that's where you need the professionals in there who are like, okay, well, I've dealt with this is my background, I know these are good ways that we can help the kiddos out, because that's the biggest thing, is everybody deserves to feel comfortable at school. And again, it goes to communication, because some kids, the parents, I mean, we've had situations and parents come in and talk, and we do everything we can to help that child out, and some parents feel one way, some parents feel a different way. So I don't think it's cookie cutter for any one child to be able to say, oh, this is how we do it, this is how we're going to handle it. Because I mean, we don't do that with special education. We don't do that with anything really. It's what a child needs. So you may have some kids who don't want to talk about things, just like you do with other stuff, but it's having teachers who are trained how to deal with that, because they don't teach that in college either. How teachers can deal with that. I mean, there's things in young levels of how teachers have to deal with stuff. There's things in older levels they have to know how to deal with. So that ties back into what we talked about before, is those trainings and having supports for teachers and having the right people in place to help kiddos out. And if that means that they have a club that they can sit and talk with and chat and know they have their support team with, okay, that's totally fine. But I don't like to group anything and say, well, this is exactly how we're going to deal with it, and this is how we should do this. I think how we deal with it is we meet the needs of our students.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And so the next question is also about meeting the needs of students. This is specifically about students who might not identify as the sex that they were born with. So if a student identifies as other gendered from his or her biological sex, so transgender, gender fluid, anything like that, non-binary, what should the school do regarding the student's identity?
Well, I mean, I think you need to go with what the student is identifying. I mean, not verify that is what you said of male, female, because I get questions about kids being cats and things of that nature. And I don't think that's necessarily what you're talking about, but so that is the same thing, that you can't put one group into one cup, right? It's the needs of what that child has. and you really have to look. So here's the whole picture. Not only how it's going to affect that child, but how other kids are going to treat that child in certain things that you're doing, right? So those are like, the whole picture has to be looked at. So if you say, go use this bathroom, and other kids are in there, what is it? Are they safe using that bathroom? Is that the best thing for them to do? Or do we make accommodations that there's a general neutral bathroom that anybody can go into, that's a single bathroom that anybody can use when they want to. It's those sorts of things that it's a whole that you have to look at, of keeping everybody safe and making sure that they feel comfortable and that they have the right people and the right supports there so they can speak up if they don't feel comfortable. And it's not just, I don't like when it's pulled out of certain groups or this or that, because I believe that for every child, that everybody deserves to have that. So it's hard for me when it's like, well, should we do this or that? Well, yeah, we're going to do what a child needs. You know what I'm saying? If I have friends whose kids, they go by different names, that's totally fine. And I've been in their schools, and the teachers completely, that's what they go with. That's how they are. And it's not a big deal. But there are things of how schools work and what's going on with those kids that admin has to look at too. And that's part of where you have the professionals in and the right training, is making sure that those needs are being met on all the way around so that they're safe, and that it's not going to create a bigger issue for them. That's not a good environment. So, I mean, it is extremely hard topic, because I don't think there's a right answer to it. But it's just really like, listen, and like, I don't think anybody, I do think some people do stuff for attention, which we all can agree on happens. But I think in people's genuine heart, when they're doing things, nobody's out to be vengeful or to hurt other people. They just want to be themselves, and they want to find their way and be accepted. And we can absolutely do that.
All right.
Sorry.
No,
It's hard
absolutely.
to answer this stuff when there's like so much, like there's so many different things in my head that I'm thinking, like, that I know goes into it. And it just, it's hard to answer, because I just want every kid to come to school and feel safe and learn and be able to have their person to talk to, that they feel safe with. And I mean, that's incredibly important to me. So I don't really care what sex you are. I think it matters that you're a human being, and that's what you deserve.
All right. This next question is, there have also been a lot of concerns about limited supports available for our Black and Brown students. What do you think should be done to address diversity and inclusion?
So, I mean, we have some of the, most people don't. We have Juan Wilson that, works, and Juan and I talk, and he's a great asset to have. And we're constantly working on that as a whole, because you should be. Things, and it's all the way around, it's really people being able to talk and how you handle things, of feeling comfortable, instead of it being like, oh, I'm not going to say anything about this, or I don't feel comfortable with it. Like, you need to have those conversations, you really do. And how staff deals with things, and how people are being disciplined. And I mean, it goes across the board. There's so much involved in it. And luckily, you've got one involved in it who is a good person to get in there and get involved. But to me, our biggest part of it is having the conversations, because again, if you have somebody that's angry and they're acting certain ways, there's a reason why. And so I think it's important that we figure out that why, instead of just, kids are not born hateful, right? They're not. And so why does that child have that view? And I think it goes both ways. And we need to figure that out and have those tough conversations, because that's how you learn. I mean, I know I can call Juan at any point and be like, hey, I have this question. Help me out here. Walk me through this. And he will. And I feel very comfortable with that. And I want our kids to feel that way, that when they're in school and they're something's going on, that they're having these conversations and they have acceptance of each other, because we all have different backgrounds, and all of our homes are different, and people talk differently in their homes based on their different backgrounds. But that's what makes us us. So the more we can do that, and the more we can put in, again, trainings and making sure, people are aware of it's okay have these conversations and talk to somebody about this. It's not, I think it makes it worse when we just don't talk about it. So that is very much a focus in our district and stuff that we're working on. I know, we have the diversity committees that I know have come up with great stuff, bullying committees, but also beyond that, that's being intertwined into our CSIP. So that's stuff that means it's going to constantly be looked at as we move forward. And it's, it's a living document. So it's not just, oh yeah, this committee, it's done. It's constant. It's going to be built into everything we do, which is extremely important.
Absolutely. This next question is from a parent, and it is, what do you think it means to work towards an equitable education experience for our students? Is this something you hope to achieve?
Yeah, and I think, again, there's a lot of crappy information out there that people are putting out of what equitable education is. I think a lot of people presented it that it's like, oh, everybody gets the trophy. That's equitable because then everybody's equal, but that's not what it is. So for example, one of my kiddos is dyslexic and struggles in reading and comprehending. He does better when things are read to him. He comprehends better when things are read to him. That's equitable for him to have those pieces put in place so that he can learn and the playing field of education is equal. Does everybody in the class need that? No, but if they did, they should be able to have it, right? Kids who need different things are going to look different at certain times, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs to have it. There's just this big communication about it. So I think the simplest answer to me is that kids need to have what they need to learn. They need to have the right tools, and that looks different for kids. Somebody may need to have the band on the bottom of their chair so they can bounce it, and somebody may need to get up and walk around. We can't put every child in the same box. But this nonsense that, again, crap that's on social media and the stuff people say about equality versus, equity, it's not really what's going on. At least not here, at least not in Fort Zumwalt. So, and I am 100% strong in saying that is not the views of anybody, but man, yeah, we are going to give kids what they need so that they can learn, we are. And anybody who doesn't get that, I challenge them to come in a classroom and see the kids that are struggling, or talk to a parent with their kids with special needs. You're sitting there and they can't understand and read something forever and you don't know why. And then when it goes off, think of if we did not give that to them. And we said, no, everybody in the class doesn't get this, or no, that's ridiculous. So, I just encourage people to really do their research and understand what it is and understand how Fort Zumwalt does things.
Absolutely.
There's my soapbox. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think that was a great answer. And actually, my next question was going to be, what does having an inclusive classroom mean to you? But I think you answered that one.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I love it. So instead, I'll ask you, what do you think makes you a better candidate than the other candidates running for the school board?
That's a hard question because, like I said, I think everybody brings stuff to the board. I think that's important to have a mixed background, and I don't personally know any of them that are running. So it's hard for me to say, well, I'm better than you. I know that I'm a good person on the board. I know that I have been very valuable to this district. I know that I love this district, and I know that I have a huge background in areas that help this district, and we're doing awesome things moving forward. So those are great positive things that if I was voting for somebody, I would want that on there. I want people advocating for my kids and for teachers and for education in general. But it's hard for me to say I'm better than this person or that because I don't know them, maybe they end up, if one of them wins and they are phenomenal on there. I mean, I hope so. I truly hope so. So there's my answer on that.
All right. We've got just a few more minutes, so I'll ask you one more question and then we will start to wrap it up and give people the information they need to vote.
Sure.
So this, actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I have two more questions. So the first question is, what do you, oh, nope, I'm wrong again. Sorry about that. So yes, this is the last question. And this was the last question last year as well, but it's such a good question that we thought we should just keep going with it as our way to end the town halls.
Sure.
So what steps will you take to unite our school community after several years of division? Which I'm sure you know better than anyone else.
Yeah, 100%. Again, it goes to listening, and it goes to having those conversations. You know, there was so much hate, it just ungodly amount of hate, and people not talking and listening to each other. And that's really, I think we have begun definitely that healing process, and people back together and talking and understanding, but that's really what it is. And I think that's what we teach our kids. You know, that's what we want our kids to do, is listen and hear. So as adults, we have to walk the walk if we talk the talk, you know what I mean? And so that's what I try and do. And like I said before, I really could care less if you have a complete opposite opinion than me. And in fact, I welcome it. I may discuss it with you and tell you exactly why I don't agree with you, but I will listen and I will take that. And I do learn from that, you know? So I think encouraging that aspect is so incredibly important, that we just listen and appreciate people for who they are, and that people can be different than you. We all don't have to look the same. We all don't have to be from the same places. And that would be so boring if we were. So appreciating the differences, and just, my dad always tells me, you got one mouth and two ears for a reason. So, you know, listen more than you talk.
Absolutely. Well, before we sign off, is there anything else you want to tell anyone who's thinking of voting for you?
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on here. I think you guys have done a great job. I've watched you from the beginning with this, and talk about a former student finding their voice. It's been very rewarding watching you grow and everything you've done. You should be very proud of yourself. But anybody has questions, they can send me a note, send me an email. I will answer your questions. I don't have tons of signs out there. I asked if people wanted to give money, that they donate it to a school, that they give it to a club, or they pay off a lunch account. Because again, I think if all that money that people spend on that stuff, if we took that and used it in the schools of what people need, how much more could we accomplish, right? So, and I feel like people know me, and if they want to ask me more questions and have anything, I'm here. So I'd rather them do that than, if you're going to pick me off based off of what a sign looks like, then we got some problems. So I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on here. The election is April 4th, and voters will be able to choose 3 members. You are one of the candidates. There are 6 others, and everyone will be selecting 3 candidates.
Yes, ma'am.
So all of that information is on the Fort Zumwalt website. I encourage everyone to take a look. Early voting, I believe, has already started. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and everyone, just local elections are so important. Definitely get out and vote. And just a very quick plug before we sign off, go to findthelightfoundation.org. We have a massive suite of mental health resources, both online and local now, is our brand new one. All of those were created by a junior at Zumwalt South. So they're all very accessible. You can access free resources. We do not get paid for any of that. It's just his project to change the world, as many Fort Zumwalt students are working on.
Love it.
So thank you so much for being here. We will make sure that you and Kat get these videos. And I'm sure that if anyone has any questions, they can contact you. Are you on Facebook? You have a website?
I'm on Facebook, so you can just on there, and then I have if they go to the website, my school email address is on there too. That'll come straight to me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end the Facebook Live. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions, and everyone who will watch these videos.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Go ahead and stop the